One night, an old man named Clyde is running in the forest, being pursued by some kind of creature. As Clyde looks at a map to confirm if he's in the right place, he is cornered, not by the unknown creature, but by another hooded man who points a gun at him. The man orders Clyde to hand over the map, but he just tosses it into the entrance of a cave behind him. Only then does the unknown creature finally catch up to them, and the man shoots Clyde before facing the creature. However, his bullets do nothing against it, and he simply flees. After a few weeks, a man named Nick, Clyde's grandson, goes to his grandfather's hometown and the farm that was his to see his younger brother Tristan, who arrived there a few days earlier. Tristan received a letter from their grandfather written a month before his death. While Nick reads the letter, they discover that Clyde wants to give his land to the local Aboriginal tribe. Clyde states in the letter that he's leaving the final decision to Tristan, believing he will know the right thing to do. In the meantime, he wants Nick to keep an eye on his brother and the tribe, trusting that he can be a good guide for all of them. After reading the letter, Tristan reveals to Nick that a local developer offered him a significant amount of money to buy the land, and he wants Nick's opinion on the matter. Nick, however, tells him that their grandfather entrusted him with the land, so it's up to him to decide. Tristan is somewhat disappointed not to receive any advice from his brother and leaves Nick. He goes out to bury a dead kangaroo he found earlier in the yard. Nick follows him and apologizes, saying he just doesn't want to tell his brother what to do. Sometime later, the leader of the local tribe named Garvey visits the two brothers and discusses the land. Nick leaves Tristan with Garvey to give them privacy. As it turns out, it was Garvey who sent the letter to Tristan after Clyde's sudden death. Garvey hopes that Tristan will honor Clyde's wish and keep the land, but Tristan shows his willingness to sell it and offers Garvey a cash payment instead. The local tribe leader tries to persuade Tristan to think differently, saying that the land has been with them from the beginning, and he can't just take it away from them. He then gives Tristan his contact information and says he trusts him to make the right decision. Later that night, the two brothers are talking when their dog becomes frightened, and they hear a terrifying roar from the forest, along with the sound of falling trees. They quickly decide to go inside the house and call their dog to come in. However, in the early hours of the morning, they are awakened from their sleep by a strange noise that seems to be coming from inside the house. Armed with a cricket bat, Nick and Tristan check where the noise is coming from, not realizing a shadow passing behind them as they walk. In the end, they find nothing but an open window. Nervous, Tristan decides to sleep in his brother's room. When morning comes, Nick and Tristan see scratch marks outside their balcony. At this moment, they hear a car honking, and Tristan realizes it's his friend's van. He approaches them when his friend BJ gets out of the van, asking them what they are doing here. BJ claims that he was the one who called and invited them to the place. However, Tristan doesn't remember that. BJ's other friends, Rebecca, Jason, Kate, and Anya, who is Nick's ex-girlfriend, are with him. As they enter the house, the group of friends, except for Anya, greet Nick. Later, in the early evening, the group of friends is sitting around a table, talking and drinking. They play a card-passing game with their mouths, and Rebecca deliberately drops hers to kiss Tristan. At that moment, the two apologize to their friends, as they're going to share a private moment. BJ tells Anya to prepare the van, so it will be ready for the two of them to sleep in when they get there. Anya is uncomfortable with this, but she does it anyway. When she leaves, Jason comments on how easy it is for BJ to give orders to her, and the man takes pride in it. Shortly after, they hear the same strange roar that Tristan and Nick heard the day before. BJ orders Jason to check, forcing him to take a look in the forest. Meanwhile, Nick sees Anya setting up the mattress and pillows in the van. As he approaches her, they chat, and he says he's happy for her and BJ. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted when they hear Jason yelling from the forest. They quickly run back to the group and find Kate, Jason's girlfriend, kissing BJ. While Nick checks the forest, Anya goes straight to Tristan and Rebecca to inform them about Jason, appearing as if she's already used to BJ's infidelity. Soon they find Jason, and fortunately, nothing bad has happened to him. He's just vomiting due to alcohol. But when Nick helps him to get up, he sees a pair of bright red eyes looking at them from a distance among the trees. Because of this, He quickly helps Jason to his feet, and they immediately run back to the house. As they return, BJ laughs at Jason, thinking he's just being clumsy and cowardly in the forest. Due to what happened, they decide to end the party there and rest. Nick also reminds BJ and Anya not to stay in their van that night. Although Anya agrees to sleep in the house, BJ ignores Nick's warning and still chooses to rest in his van. The next day, Nick is in his grandfather's study room, examining his belongings. He finds a newspaper clipping with an article about his grandmother's death. This piques his interest, leading him to look further into Clyde's possessions, where he finds a map similar to the one his grandfather was protecting on the night he died. Due to his discoveries, Nick plans to go to the town with internet access to research the incident involving his grandparents. Meanwhile, Tristan shares a sweet moment with Rebecca and says he will cook for her. Then, he and Anya head to town. Just in time, they find Nick getting ready to leave and decide to go together in the car. Upon arriving in town, Nick goes to a cafe while Tristan and Anya go to the supermarket. Nick starts researching cryptozoology and finds an article about his grandfather's discoveries, leaving him confused and concerned. It's revealed that Clyde was a cryptozoologist, researching mythical creatures. Meanwhile, in the supermarket, Tristan and Anya discuss Nick, and both feel guilty that he always chooses himself and his career over other people. Back at home, Rebecca informs the friends that she's going for a swim in a nearby river. BJ, upon seeing her sexy body, decides to follow her. While walking through the forest, Rebecca admires the tranquility of the environment. Suddenly, she glimpses something like a creature camouflaged in a tree and stumbles over a root, but when she looks back, there's nothing there. Frightened, she runs with her injured foot and dives into the river. At that moment, BJ appears behind her and startles her. He approaches, and Rebecca realizes he's naked. She rejects him and says she'd rather be with Tristan now. Hearing this, BJ's ego is wounded, and he leaves, saying she'll come back to him, as she always does. Meanwhile, Nick, Tristan, and Anya are on their way back home when Tristan asks to stop at the local developer's office. Nick agrees to sell the land because he doesn't want Tristan to live there alone. Upon arriving, John, the real estate agent, hands them the papers to sign the contract. Nick sees a pair of night vision goggles emitting red light in John's office and recalls what happened the previous night. He also spots a copy of the map his grandfather had, framed on the wall. Because of these suspicious items, Nick interrupts Tristan's conversation with John, saying they should study the contract before signing it. Confused, Tristan agrees with his brother, and they leave the office. Back at home, the brothers argue because Nick insists that John isn't who he claims to be. Nick tells Tristan what he saw in John's office and suggests that he might be responsible for the noises in the forest and the pair of red eyes he saw the previous night with Jason. However, Tristan thinks his brother is being judgmental and irrational. Nick then decides to continue his research, accompanied by Anya, while Tristan searches for Rebecca, who disappeared after swimming in the river. But we soon see that she's by the river and with different eyes, speaking some strange words to a man who was fishing nearby, causing him to scream. After a few hours of searching, they can't find Rebecca and decide to return home to get flashlights, as it's getting dark. Kate confronts BJ about what he might have done with Rebecca, but he deflects the accusation and reveals that they were together the night before. Nick and Anya, using BJ's van, return to the real estate agent John's location to investigate. The van is spotted by John, who is talking to some men. Nick hides in the back of the van while Anya tries to distract John, saying that the van has some problems and that she's just waiting for her fiancé to arrive to help her. John simply watches, and Anya shows him an engagement ring. Fortunately for them, John believes that Anya and goes back to get into a car with the men. As they leave, Nick returns to his seat and laughs at her fiancé's story until he realizes that the engagement ring she showed John is the one he gave her 7 years ago. He apologizes, saying that when their stepfather left them, he had to put himself aside and start taking care of Tristan and their mother. It is revealed that Nick has been the one providing all the financial support to his family all along, not his stepfather. Since Tristan was just a child at the time, Nick didn't want him to think his stepfather was a bad guy, so he put all the money he was giving with his stepfather's name. Not knowing what to say, Anya just tells him to finish what he needs to do before John and the other men return. Meanwhile, in the forest, Tristan joins BJ, while Kate and Jason head in a different direction to cover more ground in search of Rebecca. At that moment, Jason and Kate argue about her cheating on him with BJ when they hear something growling nearby. This is when a horrifying creature reveals itself, and upon seeing such a creature, the two of them desperately run as fast as they can. Meanwhile, Tristan and BJ finally find Rebecca, but they don't realize that something is wrong with her, especially her eyes, which have turned completely white. She hypnotizes them and tries to lure them toward the river when luckily the pet dog appears and scares Rebecca into the river, releasing the two men from hypnosis. At that moment, they hear Jason and Kate screaming from the other side, and BJ quickly flees, while Tristan stays and grabs the flashlight, waiting for his friends to cross the river. However, only Jason manages to cross because the creature drags Kate away from them. With no other choice, Tristan and Jason run back to the house, while the creature continues to roar. Not long after, they hear a loud knock on the front door. Tristan slowly opens the door and is surprised to see his stepfather Sam back. To add to the surprise, John, who turns out not to be a real estate agent but a paramilitary, also appears with his men. Seeing how confused Tristan is, Sam talks to him privately and tells him about the bunyip. He claims that the bunyip is the creature that killed their grandparents, so he, along with John and his men, is there to kill it and protect Tristan and his friends. When Sam asks where their other friends and Nick are, Tristan says that Nick and Anya are somewhere out there, while two women have already been taken by the creature. Hearing this, Sam goes to talk to John and tells him that they only have Anya left as bait. At this moment, it is revealed that Sam and the others only want to kill the bunyip to make a lot of money from it. Therefore, Sam takes Tristan while John talks to BJ and Jason, convincing them to join the hunt in exchange for a substantial sum of money. After everyone is informed and prepared, Sam orders Tristan to call Anya so she can arrive as quickly as possible. Back at the site, Nick enters John's office and finds photographs and sketches of bones from different creatures that are certainly not normal animals. Looking closer, he also discovers a camouflage suit, which makes him certain that John was the one he saw the night before. When he leaves John's office, he sees Garvey and his tribe members waiting for him. Anya asks Nick what is really happening, and he tells her about his grandfather being a cryptozoologist and his study of bunyips, a mythical man-eating creature that lives in the waters of Australia. Then, Garvey orders Nick and Anya to follow them. Nick decides to go with them, while Anya goes back home to warn Tristan and the others about John, unaware that they've already prepared for this. Shortly after, Garvey begins to tell the story of a man named Biami, who long ago fought against the creature called Bunyip and managed to imprison it. But the creature vowed revenge against all tribes, animals, and all life on Earth, when three women decided to test the power of the Bunyip and went after its prison. When they found it, instead of killing them, the Bunyip gave them eternal life and possessed them forever. These three women later became evil spirits as well, seducing everyone to their death and allowing the Bunyip to escape from its prison through them. At this moment, history is repeating itself. The Bunyip had already captured Rebecca and Kate with its evil spell, and Anya was the only one who managed to escape before the Bunyip was released again. When she arrives at the house, she is attacked and loses consciousness. Upon waking up, she finds herself tied up and gagged. Tristan asked Sam what was going on, but BJ stopped him. Jason confronted BJ, freeing Tristan, but John fired a warning shot to calm them down. To Tristan's surprise, Sam also points the gun at him to intimidate him and make him stay quiet. After everyone is ready, the Bunyip appears, drawn by Anya, and the fight begins, with the creature flipping the car that Jason was in with another soldier. While everyone is distracted, fighting the creature, Anya seizes the opportunity to escape and reunites with Tristan. She tells him that Nick stayed with Garvey and his tribe. The creature continues to attack and knock down the men. Anya hides with Tristan under the car and sees the ferocity of the monster, so they try to escape in a car with another soldier, but the creature won't let them. BJ manages to get Jason, who was trapped under the car, and they get into another car to escape. Up ahead, they see Anya and Tristan running and tell them to jump in the bed of the truck. Tristan manages to do it, but Anya is knocked down by John while Tristan is taken by Jason and BJ. However, Anya manages to escape from John into the woods with him chasing her, but the creature finds him and kills him. Sam appears and takes Anya, while Tristan convinces BJ to go back and save their friends. They then attempt to return, but are cornered by the monster chasing them. Tristan shoots at the monster, but to no effect, and they are almost caught when BJ makes a sharp turn into the woods, eluding the creature, but crashing into a tree. At this moment, Nick has returned home and found no one there. Garvey arrived to help him save Tristan and the others, luring the bunyip into the cave. Sam also reached the cave, offering Anya as bait, and revealing that he planned everything to kill the bunyip for money. When the bunyip and the women arrive, Sam hides, waiting for the right moment to attack. Anya tries to wake her friends up, but without success. The bunyip begins to possess Anya, but Nick and Garvey arrive just in time. Seeing Sam hiding, Nick attacks, and the two men fight. At first, Nick struggles, but he manages to turn the tables and electrocute Sam using his taser. Meanwhile, Garvey uses his boomerang and hits the bunyip in the eye, finally releasing Anya, Rebecca, and Kate from its spell. Nick then takes the opportunity to guide them out of the cave. However, he can't just leave because he still needs to save Tristan. Promising Anya that he will find her later, Nick goes back into the cave to rescue Tristan. Unfortunately for BJ, the bunyip devoured him earlier. Seeing his brother return to him, Tristan apologizes when he finally realizes that it was Nick who was helping him all along, not his useless stepfather. But as they are about to leave, Sam appears and shoots Nick. Knowing that the mess won't end as long as Sam is alive, Nick confronts him. While Garvey is battling the bunyip, the evil of his land, Nick is also fighting the evil in his family, which is Sam. In the end, Nick and Garvey sacrifice themselves, trapping each other and the bunyip in that place, while the physical body of the bunyip explodes, sealing the entrance to its cave. Seeing the explosion, Tristan tries to run back to his brother, but it's already too late. Unwillingly, Tristan returns home alone. And when Anya doesn't see Nick, she knows that he sacrificed himself once again for his younger brother. The movie ends with Tristan, Rebecca, Anya, and Kate leaving the safe place, permanently scarred in their hearts. On a deserted island somewhere on this vast planet, we see a woman named Jen lying at the edge of the beach with a life vest. She had been unconscious, and upon regaining consciousness, she realizes that Brad, her friend, is also unconscious. She runs to him, and upon turning him over, sees a piece of coral embedded in his stomach. Barely alive, Jen, terrified, screams for help, but there's no response. She takes off her backpack and life vest, and then drags Brad further away from the water. Jen then removes the coral from her friend's belly and uses her scarf to press against the wound. She then ventures into the nearby woods, finds a coconut, opens it with a rock, and hurriedly returns to Brad, pouring the coconut water into his mouth, only to find that he has already died. Holding his face, she calls for him, but her friend is gone, leaving her devastated. The island where Jen and Brad are stranded has a small strip of beach surrounded by dense forest. Jen, in grief, walks around the island, completing a circle and returning to Brad's body. She then enters the jungle, reaching a clearing where she sees a bag hanging from a tree and a red cooler. Excited, she calls out again, hoping to see someone, but no one answers. Jen examines the bag's contents and, seeing a medicine with a date of 1994, realizes that whoever was there before her was long ago. In the cooler, she finds some bottles of Coca-Cola, but soon leaves it behind, moving on to find a thermos and a small metal box. Inside the box, she finds a deck of cards, a pack of matches, and other items. She also discovers an abandoned tent covering a backpack containing an old Game Boy, a car radio, a book, and a teddy bear. When Jen returns to the beach, she hears a sound from a hollow tree and investigates, finding it's a tropical bird. She gathers some leaves to cover Brad, and looking around, sees nothing but sand and ocean. That night, there's heavy rain, and she seeks shelter under some leaves, using a jacket for cover. The next morning, she catches some small fish stranded on the beach. Picking them up, she sees a dead shark, split in half, with deep marks on its body. Jen stares at the sea, wondering what could have caused such wounds. She tries to clean the fish using a flat stone as a knife. It's a difficult task, but she eventually gives up and returns to the cooler, sitting down with her belongings. She opens her diary and finds that the water has erased all the ink. Inside, Jen sees a photo of her and her boyfriend. In the jungle, Jen finds another clearing where she sees a burial site for 3 people who had been there long before her, which frightens her. She returns to the beach and sees Brad's body, which is already stinking. She drags him closer to the forest, digs a shallow grave, and buries him there, also placing a piece of wood with the initial of his name. That night, Jen improvises a sleeping place and prepares roasted fish for dinner, spending her first night on the deserted island. The next morning, Jen walks along the beach looking for more resources when she's startled to see that Brad's body has been removed from the grave, mutilated, and dragged away by someone or something. She grabs a piece of wood, sharpens it with a stone into a spear for defense, and looks around, expecting to see something, but finds nothing. Night falls again, and Jen is now fully alert to any movement or noise, fearing that whatever took Brad's body might come to attack her. But nothing happens, and all is quiet. The following day, Jen sees something in the distance and decides to swim out to it, finding it to be a bucket and a suitcase. She dives to try and find more, and sees a dark hole in the ocean bed. Jen takes the bucket and the box to the beach, where she finds a pair of sneakers and some clothes. That night, which is her third, she changes clothes and puts on the sneakers to stay warmer. Sitting by the fire, she opens the metal box again and examines its contents, finding a secret compartment in the box that hides some photos. She tries to use the fire to examine the images when she hears the sound of a plane overhead. She runs to get the flare and fires it, but it doesn't work. She tries a second time, and it works. With the flare glowing in the distance, she waits to see if she gets a response, but as the flare disappears into the horizon, Jen sees a humanoid monster emerging from the water. Frightened, she runs back to where she was sitting, grabs her wooden weapon, and runs into the jungle. She finds a place to hide, listening to rustling leaves and approaching footsteps. She stays hidden until she eventually hears the monster leave. The next day, Jen runs back to the beach. She looks again at the 4 photos she was examining the night before and discovers they are of a family. The last photo shows a woman holding a bag near the tree Jen found earlier. In the photo, Jen can see 2 shining dots in the distance. She contemplates what to do, empties the suitcase, puts her and Brad's life jackets inside, and tries to use it as a raft. She takes this makeshift raft to the ocean and tries to get on it, but despite several attempts, the suitcase raft can't support her weight. So, she throws the life jackets and the suitcase back to the beach. That night, Jen uses the hollow tree as her sleeping place, keeping her weapon close in case the monster returns. At some point during the night, Jen is sleeping inside the trunk when she hears the monster arrive. She tries to stay quiet as the beast approaches and rolls the trunk with Jen inside, but she makes no noise. Luckily, the terror doesn't last long, and it ends with the thing going away. The next morning, a frightened Jen comes out of the trunk and manages to catch a small shark using some little fish as bait. She then uses the shark as bait for the monster. That night, which is already the 5th, while hiding in a place where the hanging shark is within her line of sight, she watches, hoping the monster will just take the shark and go away without wanting to go after her. Jen closes her eyes for a short time at some point, and when she opens them, the shark has already disappeared. The next morning, Jen examines the worn ropes and, while sharpening her weapon, sees something in the distance. It's a body floating in the water. She goes up to the body and discovers it's a man cut in half with a mutilated face. Jen then hangs the body in the same way she did with the shark. On the 6th night, Jen is sitting in her hiding place, watching the monster knock down the body and take it to the ocean. She hears the sound of an airplane engine, but is still contemplating what to do when she sees the monster's feet nearby. But she manages to stay quiet until the monster moves away. The next morning, Jen prepares a tarp to improvise a high net in the trees, believing that she will be able to rest without being seen by the creature. Later that 7th night, the weather seems to turn, and it thunders a lot. She hears the monster nearby and looks for it, where during a lightning flash, she sees the creature, which unfortunately also sees her there. She quickly lies down in the net, and when the monster approaches, she almost hyperventilates. The monster pulls the net, and Jen falls to the ground but manages to escape the beast. She grabs her weapon, runs to the beach, and continues running desperately. The monster jumps out of the water, almost grabbing Jen, but she is faster, and the creature returns to the water, attacking again. This time, it stands up in front of Jen, who attacks it with her weapon. The monster throws her away, but before she can get up, the monster kicks her into the water. Jen looks for the beast, but it has disappeared. Now, injured and scared, she returns to the jungle and takes refuge on top of a tree to try to recover. In the morning, the girl goes down to the beach and washes her wounds from the fight with the monster. Then, Jen changes clothes and is surprised to see an inflatable raft with a tent slowly approaching the island on the horizon. Not believing what she sees, she swims towards the raft and finds two other survivors from the shipwreck, her boyfriend Lucas Griffin and her friend Mia Reed. When they reach the beach, Jen can hardly believe her luck and immediately throws herself into her boyfriend's arms. Lucas reassures her, saying that now everything will be all right. After a while, the girl prepares breakfast for Lucas and Mia and pleases them with a 20-year-old soda. They admire the beauty of the island, but Jen warns about the danger lurking beneath the waters. Lucas asks the girl to calm down and affectionately calls her dear. She tells her friends about the sea monster and the black hole in the ocean floor, where it drags its victims. Seeing that her closest people don't believe her, Jen talks about Zach, whose mutilated body was eaten by the monster. Hearing the name of their friend, Lucas and Mia exchange embarrassed glances. Jen vividly describes all the horror she experienced those days and shows a photo of the deceased family that reveals the shining eyes of the monster. Despite all her arguments, Lucas and Mia remain skeptical. Although Mia believes there are graves on the island of the family that lived here, she wonders who buried them. They suggest that Jen calm down and wait for Brad or anyone else to arrive on the shore. After all, the current takes everyone to this island. Jen tells Mia that Brad, who was her boyfriend, didn't survive the shipwreck, and the monster dragged his body underwater. Mia walks away from her friends in tears, trying to comprehend her loss. After some time, the friends are alone on the beach. Mia stares blankly at the calm surface of the water and tells her friend how scared she was to be in the middle of the vast ocean. She counted each of her days as if they were her last, thinking and going crazy with the silence on the raft. Jen is sure that it is better to risk it on the raft in the ocean than to end up here, devoured by the monster. But her friend disagrees. Lucas also had difficult moments in the last few days and is in no rush to return to the water. However, Jen intends to leave the island before nightfall. She suggests sailing west because that is the direction the planes fly, so there might be people living there. After that, she asks the young man to give her a pocket knife in order to get as much food as possible before leaving. When opening the pocket knife, the girl finds traces of red liquid on it. She realizes that something terrible happened on the raft and that Lucas and Mia are hiding the truth from her. After gathering food alone for the week, Jen returns to her friends, who are strangely faltering in the scene. They inform her that they are too exhausted to swim again. They think that any scary monster that lives on the island should not be more dangerous than floating on a raft in the open ocean. Instead, they suggest building a fire on the beach and waiting for the planes to appear. But Jen maintains her position. She tries to convince her friends to get into the lifeboat and escape before nightfall, but Lucas explodes at her and refuses to go. Without the support of her closest friends, the girl goes to swim. While in the water, she devises a cunning plan. After waiting for her boyfriend and Mia to let their guard down, Jen puts the prepared supplies in a container and then launches the inflatable raft into the water, making a daring attempt to escape without the two of them. The couple realizes this and starts chasing the girl. Jen tries to get away from them and pushes Mia several times with her feet. Eventually, Lucas manages to throw his girlfriend out of the raft, and Mia immobilizes her, hitting her head with an oar. Jen regains consciousness when it's already dark. She is tied to a tree to prevent her from making another escape attempt. Mia informs that the island is safe and that they haven't found any monsters since it got dark. Mia apologizes for hitting her friend with the oar, but Jen doesn't want to hear anything and asks to be released. Mia still refuses to believe her friend's stories about the sea monster, as Jen often deceived people close to her before and lost their trust long ago. After a round through the jungle, Lucas joins the girls. He assures that he hasn't found any monsters there, but Jen is disturbed and once again says that the monster appears in the water, not in the jungle. Mia decides to leave the couple alone and goes for a walk on the beach. She is horrified to find the mutilated remains of a fish in the sand. A conversation arises between Lucas and Jen, in which the guy first tries to comfort his girlfriend and then decides to say everything he thinks about her. While he was having fun on the yacht with his best friends, Jen was not happy. He thinks that the girl brings him nothing but unhappiness and wants to ruin everything again, deciding to leave the safe island. Jen once again tries to appeal to the guy's mind and asks him to release her, but Lucas refuses to do so. He tries to humiliate the girl and reminds her that he completely supports her. The guy is convinced that even if she manages to leave the island alone without his help, she will become helpless and useless to everyone. Lucas then scolds Jen for wanting to escape the island, leaving him without food and no hope of rescue. The girl explains that there is plenty of food on the island, and that the only person to fear is the bloodthirsty monster. After hearing all of Lucas's insults, Jen decides to find out from him what really happened to Zach. On the raft, before he can answer the uncomfortable question, a desperate scream from Mia, who was attacked by the monster, emerges. Lucas grabs a torch and runs to rescue the girl, leaving Jen tied to the tree. When he arrives at the scene, the guy finds the sea monster, which has already started devouring Mia. Lucas hits the monster with the flaming torch, but it easily pushes the opponent away. Jen barely manages to free herself from the bonds and runs to help her friends, but it's already too late. The monster grabs Mia and drags her underwater. Lucas watches in horror but can do nothing to help. When Jen arrives, she grabs the shocked Lucas and takes him to the depths of the jungle where they spend the night. It's already the 9th day on the island. Lucas hesitates to come down from the tree, fearing that the monster might be waiting for them below. The girl assures the guy that the sea monster never appeared on the coast during the day. The guy is struggling with the events of last night and blames himself for Mia's disappearance. To distract Lucas from his sad thoughts, Jen asks for help to pack their stuff and provisions, so they can finally escape the cursed island. The girl fishes some fish with a spear and spends her last matches cooking, and decides to make one more walk to the camp before leaving, in order to collect all the necessary items. She then picks up the expired pill container again and holds it thoughtfully, listening to the silence of the island. Eventually, she and Lucas load their belongings onto the raft and launch it into the water. Once inside, Jen discovers that everything inside is flooded with a red liquid, presumably Zach's blood. The girl looks apprehensively at her boyfriend, but hesitates to uncover the truth. The guy rows away from the coast and they start moving west, where they can be detected by passing planes. But then, Lucas notices something moving underwater. Moments later, the sea monster jumps and attacks them. Lucas and Jen barricade themselves inside the raft, but the monster continues attacking from all sides. They are very scared, as they were convinced that the monster only appeared at night. The sea monster breaks the bottom of the raft and tries to grab Jen, but she pushes it away with her feet. Lucas shoots several times at the monster's head with his flare gun and pushes it into the water with a spear. Water starts coming in through the hole in the bottom of the raft. There's a brief silence, after which the sea monster drags Jen underwater in broad daylight. The creature looks like a giant mix of a shark and a humanoid. It drags Jen slowly towards a black hole on the ocean floor, but the girl, overcoming her terror, remembers the pocket knife. Jen wounds the monster with it, and it swims away from her, bleeding black fluid. Suddenly, the sea monster's attention is drawn to Lucas, who dives into the water to save his girlfriend. The monster quickly swims up to the guy and grabs him. Lucas tries to defend himself with his spear, but the monster drags him to the black hole. Powerless, Jen can do nothing to help. She emerges from the water and screams in despair. With no choice, she has to return to the island, where the torn raft is carried by the current. The girl struggles to light a fire and leaves a last message in her diary. In it, she recounts what happened on the island and shares her experiences with the monster. She hopes the message will help all the shipwreck survivors who may be cast ashore after her, in case she can't handle the creature alone. Jen decides to confront the sea monster and starts preparing for the final battle. She sharpens tree branches and unearths bones from graves to make sharper weapons. At night, the monster goes out to hunt again. Jen lures it into a circle of dry sticks and grass and then sets it on fire. The monster looks confused, trying to find a way out of the trap. Taking advantage of the moment, the girl comes out from behind cover and attacks first with her spear. She grabs more sharp sticks and tries to attack the monster again, but it throws her away. Jen doesn't give up and keeps attacking the monster desperately. trying to stick as many spears as possible into its recent wound. After a fierce confrontation, the girl tries to crawl to her weapon, but the monster grabs her with a huge paw, squeezing Jen's head, intending to crush her skull. Despite the desperate situation, the girl manages to pull out a small piece of wood and pierces the chest of the sea monster several times with it. Both are severely injured, but the monster keeps pursuing Jen to the shore. The girl stops, ready to attack the monster again, but it collapses, exhausted from its injuries. The girl destroys the creature, piercing it with her spear, and then decapitates its lifeless body. Fortunately, the terrible night turns into dawn. We end here seeing Jen limping towards the raft, carrying the head of the monster as proof of what happened to her on that cursed island, which is now in flames. And fortunately, this will be her salvation, being a signal for someone to see from afar. The Woods family is moving to their new home in the countryside. The parents, Kira and Brian, are very proud of the house they bought for their children, Stephen and Ellie. Their son Stephen is also excited, but Ellie is the complete opposite. She hates having to leave her friends behind and feels disconnected from her parents, thinking they don't understand her. This house they just acquired for a price well below the market strangely has a name and is called Zaos, something really strange. They notice there is an old painting of a man with 2 fingers raised and letters of an unknown alphabet under some doors, with a small triangle drawing below. When they open the basement door to look, they don't find it interesting, so when Ellie tries to leave, the door closes before her. She immediately asks them to open it, but the door strangely jams, preventing it from being opened both inside and out. That's when Ellie feels as if something is approaching in the dark, and she becomes increasingly scared, starting to scream for them to open the door quickly. Fortunately, Kira sees the key hanging on a nail next to it, so Brian uses it to let her out. At night, Kira asks Ellie to take care of Stephen because she and Brian need to go to the office for a very important business meeting. At a certain moment, while Ellie is talking on the phone with a friend, she suddenly gets a big scare with a strange figure, but soon sees that it was just her brother Stephen, wearing a cape and a strange skull that he found in a hidden compartment in the game room, where their parents didn't know about this hidden compartment. Then Ellie checks and finds a plaque that said Solve et Coagula, an old record player, and an abacus. Stephen says that some classmates talked about the house belonging to a witch who made a pact with the devil. They then play the record player, but instead of some music, the recording plays a man's voice, reading the strange equation written on the record itself. Sometime later, a strange breeze comes from under the basement door and cuts off the power throughout the house. Ellie then calls her mother about the problem. Kira tells her to go down to the basement to check the breakers, as it must have been what caused the problem. Ellie initially refuses to do this, but her mother convinces her, and even with much fear, she goes. When she sees the stairs leading to the bottom of the completely dark basement, Ellie says she can't do it, so Kira tells her a little trick she uses when she needs to clear her mind, saying it was just counting from 1 to 10. Kira guides Ellie over the phone, encouraging her with each step she takes counting a number. But with each step she took, her fear increased, as strange things happened, like the basement door moving and a strange wind coming from down there. Ellie, even crying with fear, manages to take the 10 steps, but on the last one, she closes her eyes and falls. On the other side of the line, Kira can hear her continue counting beyond number 10 without responding anymore, just counting, which clearly scares her, and then she immediately heads back home with Brian. When they get there, they can't find Ellie anywhere, so they call the police. A quick search in the woods around is made, but without success, and as there is no evidence of any crime happening and Ellie had run away from home before, the police just tell the parents to wait for news, as she is probably at a friend's house. The next morning, the family asks some neighbors for help, and they go to the forest to search again, but the result is the same. Brian understands that Ellie was angry with them, so he says it's natural that she might have run away again, but Kira doesn't think that's the case. She firmly believes something happened to Ellie because of how strange her voice sounded while counting after number 10. The next day, Kira starts spreading missing posters of Ellie and forgets to pick up Stephen from school until the teacher calls her. As soon as her son is with her, Kira goes to the police station to see if there are any updates, but the detective doesn't have much to say, only that they checked the security cameras at bus and train stations, also called Ellie's friends. But there are no leads, especially since they also didn't find her phone. The only important thing the detective can comment on is the fact that Ellie was bullied and harassed on social media for a while. Feeling guilty for not knowing this, Kira asks the forensic team to check the basement because she is convinced that her daughter did not run away. However, once again, the detective reminds her that since this is not a criminal case, he cannot do much more. When she returns home, Kira notices that the phrase "solve et coagula" is carved above the front door, so she decides to search Google about it while Steven plays with his ball, throwing it against the basement door. The search results reveal that this phrase is linked to ancient alchemy and meant dissolve and coagulate. The related photos show a 5-pointed star and a picture of a strange snake. Annoyed by the noise the ball was making on the basement door, Kira calls Steven, who comes to her, dropping his ball near the door. Kira asks him how it was on the night Ellie disappeared, and the boy tells his mother that nothing out of the ordinary happened. The only different thing they did was to play an old record player. Considering it unimportant, Kira turns her attention back to the computer to check Ellie's social networks, where she discovers that her daughter had made an anarchist tattoo that she never told her family about. Later, Kira decides to check the basement again, but before entering, she notices there is a pentagon above the door. Down there, she realizes that there are Roman numerals on the steps of the staircase, and an equation at the end of it, just like the one on the record player. But the biggest surprise she has is when, using a UV light tube, she reveals several disturbing faces painted on a wall. This is enough for the police to finally send a forensic team, which, when they finish examining the place, closes the basement door, and Steven's ball falls in there. Unfortunately, the police do not find any other clues, and the only thing they can say is that the painting has been there since the 1950s. When asked about what they knew about the house, Brian says they don't know much, that they bought it at an auction for a good price, and that it used to belong to an elderly lady. Night falls and the whole family goes to sleep, but Kira is woken up by Steven, who says he wet the bed. After changing the sheets, Kira goes to the bathroom and tries to call her daughter's cell phone again, but it goes to voicemail and she is upset. Suddenly, Kira can hear the sound of a whisper that seemed to be Ellie's voice that was still counting. The sound seemed to come from the sink plumbing. However, the voice can still be heard when she leaves the bathroom, so Kira follows it to see where it was coming from, and when she arrives, she realizes it was coming stronger from the basement. When she enters, she accidentally kicks Steven's ball, which starts falling down the stairs, and the sound of it bouncing continues for longer than it should take to reach the last step. Kira turns on the light and goes down as well, but she can't find the ball anywhere, and again observes the strange equation on the last step. In the morning, Brian wakes up and finds that Kira did not return to bed that night. He goes looking for her and finds her staring at the symbols above the doors, telling her husband about the symbol and asking him if he knew what it meant, if he had ever thought about it. She also copied the equation from the basement on a piece of paper. Brian tries to console her, saying that their daughter will return, but he also needs to go to the meeting with the investors to not lose the work they did. Later, Kira calls her real estate agent to ask for information about the previous owner of the house. Unfortunately, he doesn't have much information, only knowing that the former owner was the daughter of a well-known academic who was the first owner of the house, but he promises to try to find out more. Still wanting more answers and trying to do something useful to find out where her daughter is, Kira starts taking pictures of the symbols above the doors before going to work. She sends the photos to her secretary and asks her to look up their meaning while she attends a meeting. But there, her concern does not allow her to pay much attention, so she leaves. But before she can leave the building, she is stopped by her secretary, who talks about what she asked about the symbols, saying that they are actually Hebrew glyphs, and they spell the word Leviathan, a sea creature from Jewish mythology. Then Kira goes to pick up Steven from school and finds him bleeding from the nose, as he got into a fight when one of his classmates said that Ellie was dead. When they get home, Kira looks up information about the word Leviathan on the internet, and the drawings she finds correspond to the serpent she had seen next to the article she researched earlier about the strange phrase, solve et coagula, which she had seen above the front door of her house. Then, she decides to examine the record player and plays it. The recording starts counting, while the abacus in the playroom starts moving on its own and the secret door opens. Suddenly, Steven strangely starts counting too while walking towards the hidden compartment. Fortunately, Kira hears him, turns off the record player, and rushes to her son. Not understanding why he, was counting. She asks him why he was doing that, but the boy shows no signs of remembering what he just did. Then, Kira goes to look at the painting of the man with 2 fingers raised in the living room and discovers that his name is John Featherston, where the Hebrew glyphs are also written in the image below his name. Kira searches his name on the internet and discovers that his entire family disappeared in that same house except for the daughter. At that moment, a strange breeze comes from under the basement door, causing the power to go out. Suddenly, Kira hears Steven's voice asking for help, and she runs to where he was, realizing that the voice was coming from behind the basement door, so she immediately tries to get him out, but the lock is stuck and she cannot find the key. When she looks through the keyhole, a horrifying eye stares back at her, and she quickly moves away, only to see that Steven was actually in the hallway. Out of nowhere, the basement door opens on its own, and the power comes back, revealing that the key was on the floor the whole time. Kira then hangs it up again, and then enters the basement using her phone's flashlight. As soon as she enters, the door closes behind her. She calls for Steven's help, but he is too short to reach the key, so he goes to get a chair. While waiting, Kira tries to look into the basement again and accidentally drops her phone, then realizing that there was something alive down there, as she hears a horrible grunt followed by heavy breathing, which, to make matters worse, now seemed to be heading towards where she was. Kira is terrified and asks Steven to open the door quickly, but the boy, even with the key, is unable to. The being seemed to be getting closer and closer to her up the stairs, and Kira becomes even more desperate to get out. Fortunately, Brian arrives just in time and manages to open the door. Later, Kira tells Brian that she felt a presence down there and that her phone fell. She also comments on the fact that the Featherston family disappeared like Ellie, but Brian thinks she is seeing things that do not exist. To help her calm down, Brian goes down to the basement to look for her phone, but the only thing he finds is a ball of hair. The next day, Kira goes to the National College of Mathematics, which has a Featherston wing, to talk to Dr. Remy Fournet, a brilliant mathematician. Kira gives him a piece of paper with the equation she found in the basement, and when he reads it aloud, the lights flicker for a second. After solving the equation, Remy tells her more about Featherston, saying that this used to be his office, and he was a colleague of Erwin Schrödinger, the famous physicist. Featherston worked closely with him until his son became ill and he disappeared from academic life. What happened to him is a mystery, and the only person who might know more is his daughter named Rose, from whom Kira bought the house. But Rose never talks about it because she never recovered. Fournet manages to make a graph representing the equation Kira brought, and based on this, he thinks it represents other dimensions, but this is more complex than anything he has ever seen before. He will need time to work on it, but he promises to call Kira with the results. At the end of the day, Kira returns home with a new phone. As soon as she turns it on, she receives a call from Remy, who says he tried to call her for a while and a strange voice always answered, but instead of speaking, it just counted. Then he explains that he talked to a colleague about the equation and believes it is related to a branch of mathematics created by alchemists in the 12th century. It seems to be some kind of incomplete sequence or unfinished enchantment, which is definitely related to other dimensions. This colleague has also come across a similar equation before in a house in Belgium where a family also disappeared into thin air. Brian goes to see how Kira was doing and leaves Steven alone in the playroom where the abacus is starting to move on its own again. Kira shows Brian the information she got about the glyphs, saying they meant Leviathan, a serpent of the abyss, and that the house they were in was called Chaos, which in Greek means the void before time, also known as the abyss. Again, Brian thinks she is just reading too much into it and that it's all just normal decorations of the house. So to make her forget about it, he tries to destroy the equation plate that was in the basement. However, the sledgehammer just bounces off without even denting it. At that moment, the record player starts playing, and Steven moves towards the secret compartment where he sees a dark-looking Ellie, who continues to count while glyphs are carved on her face. Steven, frightened, screams for help, but when his parents get there is no one. But when Brian enters to check, he finds her phone. The next day, Kira receives a call from her real estate agent with information on where she can find Featherston's daughter. Kira drives to a nursing home where she finds the elderly Rose in a wheelchair inside a chapel, and her nurse warns that she doesn't talk much these days. Deciding to try anyway, Kira tells Rose about Ellie and asks for her help. After a moment of silence, Rose writes in a notebook the word Leviathan saying it was one of the 7 princes of hell, but that was not its true name. She also says that her father brought it into the world when her brother became sick, and science couldn't cure him. She mentions that a ritual was performed there that brought something very ancient to the surface, but it wasn't just in the basement, but in the entire house. On the way back, Kira tries to call Remy, but the line only has static and a voice counting. Meanwhile, Brian started doing some research on his own. He connects the triangles with the pentagon, which ultimately forms a 5-pointed star. Kira arrives and he shows her this, where the star with glyphs around it represents the demon Baphomet, the gatekeeper of hell. His photo shows him making the same hand sign as Featherston in the painting in the living room, and his arms also say, "Solve Coagula." Seeing all this, Kira realizes that Rose was right when she said the whole house was designed around this. Kira turns on the record player to explain to Brian that the equation probably opens some portal. At the same time, Steven loses control of his drone that goes into the basement, and he follows it. And as he goes down the stairs, he starts counting each step. When he reaches the last one, a macabre silhouette forms right next to him in the darkness, and suddenly he screams. At the same time, the power also goes out. His parents quickly go after him, but only find the drone. Then they start searching the house, but with no success. Then in the living room, Steven's ball appears bouncing down the stairs, and that's when they can hear the boy's voice starting to count, and they follow to find their son, who was about to enter the secret compartment. They quickly take Steven to check him, discovering that the boy is burning with fever. While Brian goes to get water, Kira tries to take Steven's shirt off, and is shocked when she sees on his chest the mark of the 5-pointed star. Suddenly, Steven says he remembers riding a horned beast and starts counting again. Kira runs to find Brian, but he was also under some kind of trance in the living room, doing a countdown, and once he reaches 0, he says the words, "It's here." The basement door opens on its own and a strong wind comes out of it, while the sounds of something slowly approaching can be heard. Kira, seeing that the being was already close, runs to hide in another room. Seeing that the footsteps and heavy breathing stopped, she tries to leave but is surprised by a bizarre creature that tries to grab her, but she runs and goes to the basement with a flashlight in hand, believing that now she could find her daughter. The stairs, however, were now magically much longer than they were, and there is a door at the end, so Kira runs towards it to escape from the beast that was chasing her. She hides behind a wall at the bottom and waits for the demon to leave, to then start looking for Ellie. When she manages to get out, she finds a tunnel, and after crossing it, is shocked to find a huge open area with thousands of people walking in line and counting. Kira searches for Ellie among them, and after searching a lot, she finds her thanks to her tattoo. She then tries to wake up her daughter, who seems to be in a deep trance. Kira drags her away from the stairs, trying to hurry because she can hear the demon following them, and in the agony, she drops the flashlight. When they manage to return to the house, the power is back, and Kira closes the basement door to keep the beast inside. The monster apparently cannot pass through the door, and Ellie begins to regain consciousness. Seeing that her family is okay, Kira then says they will leave immediately, but when she approaches the front door, she finds her flashlight on the floor. She opens the door and is shocked to find a staircase leading to the top of the basement, indicating that somehow they were still down there. When Kira turns around, she sees Ellie, Steven, and Brian start counting and walking in another direction. Soon Kira also starts counting, and we see the house from the outside, which was no longer in the forest we saw before, but in a desolate and eerie place.